Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. In the ongoing federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs, as reported by Inner City Press, the courtroom had already been rocked by shocking videos, testimonies, and hushed revelations that sent ripples through the entertainment industry. Yet nothing could have prepared those present for the next bombshell. A surprise witness emerged, a man who had kept his silence for years, bound by a life of discretion, repentance, and spiritual duty. This was Diddy's former spiritual advisor, a priest whose testimony would leave the courtroom stunned. Under oath, the priest delivered a chilling revelation. He told me he was already absolved because he had paid for it. When pressed to clarify, his response sent a shiver through the room. This wasn't merely about alleged crimes, it was about a man who believed he could purchase salvation itself. This is the account of a priest who broke his vow of silence and the shocking truths he unveiled about Sean Combs. The courtroom hummed with anticipation when the prosecution introduced an unexpected witness. Even the judge seemed briefly taken aback. No name was provided. The bailiff simply announced, "Please rise for Father M." A figure in a simple black cassock entered, his silver hair catching the light, his face impassive, a worn crucifix dangling from his neck. Whispers spread among reporters, jurors exchanged glances, and Combs, seated at the defense table, shifted uncomfortably. He leaned toward his attorney, murmuring a question that caused his eyes to widen as they locked onto the priest now standing before the judge. The prosecution explained, "This witness has been granted permission to testify due to the critical nature of his privileged insights into the defendant's state of mind." The defense immediately objected, arguing that a priest bound by spiritual confidentiality could not testify against a former advisee. The prosecution countered, "Your Honor, these were not sacramental confessions but private spiritual discussions held outside sacred protocols. Father M has come forward willingly." The judge permitted the testimony and Father M took the stand. He introduced himself as a spiritual counselor with over 20 years of experience guiding public figures grappling with guilt, trauma, or moral conflicts. Referred to Combs in 2012 by an unnamed celebrity, Father M clarified that his role was not to grant absolution, but to foster moral reflection. What he encountered, however, was deeply unsettling. "I was called to guide a man torn by his double life," he began, "but I found someone who believed forgiveness could be purchased, someone who sought not redemption, but immunity." With those words, the trial entered a grim new phase. Father M's testimony gripped the courtroom as he recounted his first visit to Combs' estate in early 2013, not to a chapel but to a makeshift confessional tucked behind a high-end recording studio in Los Angeles. Driven past security gates and a line of black SUVs, he was ushered through glass doors into a space that felt more like a nightclub than a sanctuary. Combs greeted him with polished charisma, calling him Padre of the Elite, as if the priest were merely another accessory to his persona. Father M described being led to a dimly lit room adorned with velvet drapes, scented with incense, and filled with the faint hum of Gregorian chants from a Bluetooth speaker. Two chairs faced each other with a third empty against the wall, a staged mockery of a sacred space. He had crafted his own temple, Father M testified, one that revered power, not grace. Over several meetings, Combs revealed troubling details about his actions, not with remorse, but with a sense of triumph for evading consequences. He once said, "People speak of demons as if they're abstract. I welcomed mine and put them to work," the priest recalled. Father M attempted to steer the discussions toward accountability and repentance, but Combs dismissed the notion. "Why seek forgiveness when I've already been cleansed?" he reportedly scoffed. It was then that Father M realized Combs either misunderstood or deliberately twisted the concept of spirituality, treating it as a transaction rather than a path to redemption. It wasn't about seeking forgiveness, it was about securing approval. The most shocking moment unfolded during their third encounter. Combs, visibly restless, spoke of a young woman who had threatened to expose him publicly. "She thinks anyone will take her word over mine," he reportedly sneered. "I provide for entire communities." Then, locking eyes with the priest, he added, "Anyway, I've already paid for my sins. Your people cashed the check." The courtroom fell silent, the weight of his words halting even the stenographer's fingers. Father M. concluded this portion of his testimony with a grave warning. This was not a man seeking divine guidance. This was a man twisting faith into a weapon. As Father M. continued, the courtroom grew increasingly somber. The issue wasn't solely Combs' alleged actions, but his warped view of morality itself. The priest revealed that Combs treated karma like a ledger he could balance. In his mind, every misdeed could be erased with a donation, a scholarship, or a publicized act of charity. He saw morality as a calculation, Father M. testified. He'd say things like, "I gave $1 million to Harlem schools last year. That wipes out at least 3 sins." The court learned that Combs' philanthropy was calculated, not heartfelt. "He'd show me the checks before sending them," Father M. recounted. He'd say, "This will keep the demons at bay for another year." The priest recalled a particularly troubling exchange when Combs asked if donations to overseas orphanages could offset certain domestic slip-ups. When Father M. pressed for clarification, Combs grinned and said, "Let's just say some folks didn't enjoy the party as much as I'd hoped." Despite the priest's efforts to steer him toward genuine remorse, Combs remained defiant. He didn't seek atonement. He demanded proof of purchase. To him, salvation was a transaction, not a spiritual journey. In one session, Father M. pushed back harder than usual, warning Combs that no amount of money could erase deliberate harm. Combs snapped back with venom. "I've done more for this world than any saint. I've made people wealthy, put them on the map. Don't preach to me from a book you didn't write." The priest admitted he was rattled. "That was when I saw he didn't view God as an authority to answer to," Father M. testified. He saw God as a brand he could exploit. The judge remained impassive, but the jury appeared visibly shaken. The notion that someone could commit wrongs and feel morally shielded by wealth was more disturbing than the acts themselves. Father M. took a sip of water, adjusted his glasses, and pressed on. "What troubled me most wasn't the deeds he described," he said softly, "but how he described them. He saw sin as a strategy, not a flaw, and forgiveness as something he could buy outright." The courtroom sat in stunned silence as Father M. recalled a session from 2015, shortly after a high-profile lawsuit was settled out of court. Combs had been unusually tense, pacing the room, fidgeting with a gold chain as if it were a set of prayer beads. Suddenly he stopped, fixed his gaze on the priest, and declared, "Even if they come for me tomorrow, I'm untouchable." When Father M. asked what he meant, Combs smirked and delivered a line that reverberated through the courtroom, "I own my salvation." The statement wasn't figurative, he meant it literally. According to Father M., Combs believed his hefty contributions to churches, charities, and public causes had secured his divine favor. "I've given millions, more than most priests will ever see," Combs reportedly boasted. "That makes me forgiven, whether they agree or not." When Father M. tried to explain that salvation isn't a commodity, Combs grew belligerent. "You expect me to bow down?" he allegedly shouted. "I'm the reason half your clergy drive Bentleys." That exchange left Father M. grappling with his own spiritual crisis. "I left that meeting shaken," he testified. "For days I wondered if, by staying silent and listening, I had become complicit in letting someone exploit faith. But the most haunting revelation was yet to come." Father M. described a painting in the same room, a depiction of the crucifixion, but instead of Christ, it featured a black silhouette in a suit, suspended not on a cross but on a staff of musical notes. "Art is about interpretation," Combs reportedly told him, "and I'm the one rewriting the score." As Father M. recounted the "I own my salvation" moment, the courtroom remained gripped by an eerie stillness, the weight of Combs' worldview sinking in. The courtroom erupted into disarray. A juror let out a sharp gasp, quickly covering their mouth. Reporters murmured urgently into their voice-to-text devices, their words tumbling over one another. The courtroom sketch artist's pencil froze mid-stroke, a rare pause since the trial's start. The judge, typically composed, betrayed a flicker of irritation as she slammed her gavel. "Order! I will have order in this court," she demanded. Combs, who had maintained a stoic demeanor through earlier testimonies, was visibly rattled, shaking his head. His attorney leaned in, likely urging restraint, but Combs couldn't stay still. He clasped his hands tightly, a gesture that seemed more performative than prayerful. Some onlookers thought tears might follow, but none came. The prosecution capitalized on the moment. This testimony reveals not just the defendant's actions, but his profound moral disconnect, they argued. This is about his mindset, his intent, and his belief that wealth can buy absolution. The defense shot to their feet, objecting vehemently. "Your Honor, this is a smear campaign dressed up as religious critique," they protested. "The church has no place in this courtroom." The judge, unmoved, responded sharply. "The defendant brought faith into this when he used it to justify his actions. It's relevant." She permitted Father M to proceed, and additional security officers subtly repositioned themselves closer to Combs. The trial's atmosphere had shifted. This was no longer just about alleged crimes, but about a warped belief system, power, and the distortion of morality for personal gain. Outside the courthouse, media outlets erupted. Headlines screamed, "I own my salvation," "Diddy's shocking claims stun court," "Priest testifies Diddy believes he's already forgiven," "Gospel of greed, did Combs buy redemption?" Inside, Father M remained composed. "You don't understand," he reiterated softly. To him, forgiveness wasn't a gift to be received, it was a possession to be claimed. As the courtroom settled, Father M turned to what he called Combs' orchestrated piety, his deliberate use of religious donations to craft an image of divine favor. The priest revealed that between 2010 and 2020, Combs had given nearly $25 million to over 20 churches and religious charities. These were not quiet offerings, however. Each donation came with strings attached, a press release, a speaking slot, or an opportunity to stand at a pulpit and deliver what he called testimonies. He treated churches like stages, Father M testified. He'd arrive in designer sunglasses, a diamond-encrusted cross gleaming, handing out cash-filled envelopes to the choir while proclaiming how God had blessed his hustle. The congregation applauded, but it wasn't devotion. It was branding. Father M recounted a specific incident from 2017 when Combs donated $2 million to a prominent megachurch. Days later, he requested that the church remove a sermon about sin and judgment from its YouTube channel. The church complied. He didn't want to confront sin, Father M testified. He wanted to erase its trace. Even more troubling was a recorded conversation between Combs and another religious figure whose name was withheld, in which Combs allegedly remarked, "The world loves a sinner who becomes a saint. I just bypassed the redemption part." The prosecution pressed further. "Father, did he ever confess to anything specific? Something criminal?" Father M paused, his expression heavy. He made vague references, unsettling ones, about people who vanished or learned tough lessons, but always cloaked them in metaphor. I believe he was careful, knowing how far he could go without incriminating himself. Yet the implication was clear. He saw himself as morally untouchable, his spiritual account padded with purchased indulgences. At this point, the trial's atmosphere grew even more charged. Even a seasoned bailiff accustomed to high-profile cases was overheard muttering, "I've never seen anything like this." The testimony was far from over. Father M's most chilling revelation came next, recalling a moment in late 2018 that left him shaken. Media scrutiny was intensifying, with whispers of exclusive parties, hushed settlements, and certain celebrities distancing themselves from Combs. Though the public remained largely unaware, Combs sensed a storm brewing. Father M was called to his lavish estate for what he was told would be a spiritual intervention. He arrived hoping to find remorse or even fear. Instead, he found Combs pacing, chain-smoking, and chuckling bitterly at a collection of news clippings he had taped to the walls. He looked at me and said, "Padre, I'm about to face a trial. Not from God, but from them," Father M recalled. When asked to clarify, Combs flung the papers into the air with a smirk and delivered a line that now echoed through the courtroom. "They think the church can stop me. The church can't touch me." Father M sat still on the witness stand, his voice steady but heavy. "That was when I realized he didn't see God as a guide. He saw him as a rival. He didn't fear divine judgment. He believed he could outmaneuver it." The courtroom was silent save for the faint tapping of a reporter's keyboard. The prosecutor probed further. What did he mean by that? Father M explained. He genuinely believed that as long as he kept writing checks, projecting holiness, and controlling his public image, no spiritual authority could hold him accountable. He even boasted, "The Pope couldn't lecture me without blushing. I give more in a week than his entire city does in a year." Combs, Father M testified, equated his influence to religion itself. He saw fame as faith and himself as its deity, the priest said. That day in 2018, Father M nearly walked away. "I wanted to flee," he admitted, "but I stayed, clinging to the hope that he could still be reached." That hope vanished moments later. Combs had pulled a sealed envelope from a drawer, handed it to the priest, and said, "If they try to take me down, open this after it's done. You'll see I've already won." Father M confirmed that he had turned the envelope over to authorities earlier this year, its contents still sealed from public view. He had submitted it as soon as the trial began. While the full details remained confidential, Father M was permitted to read aloud the cover letter included within, a revelation that left the courtroom reeling. Dated December 24, 2018, and written in Combs' distinctive cursive, the letter began, "To whoever reads this after my fall, know I was always 10 steps ahead. This is the strategy. You only catch me if I allow it. By the time this is opened, I've already been absolved. That's what counts. The rest is just static." Father M's discomfort was palpable as he recited the words. He wrote this years before any charges, lawsuits, or public accusations surfaced, the priest explained. He foresaw it and made peace with it on his own terms. According to Father M, Combs believed in a self-crafted form of redemption. The letter outlined a calculated public relations plan, how to shed tears on camera, which charities to fund for maximum impact, and which pastors would publicly defend him. It even listed rehearsed phrases for media interviews such as, "My past doesn't define me," "Let the sinless cast the first stone," and "God's work in me isn't finished." They were scripted, Father M testified. Even remorse was part of his brand. The courtroom was stunned by the implication that Combs had not only orchestrated his image of power, but had also planned his potential downfall, framing it as a campaign to reemerge as a redeemed figure. The prosecutor pressed, "Father, in your view, did the defendant ever believe in genuine forgiveness?" "No," Father M replied firmly. "He believed in appearances." Combs sat motionless at the defense table, his face unreadable. The testimony wasn't merely evidence, it was a dissection of his moral framework. Yet there was more. Father M's final revelation centered on the moment he cut ties with Combs and why he now feared for the man's soul. The courtroom leaned forward as he recounted their last encounter in 2020 during the peak of the pandemic. With churches shuttered and events canceled, Combs, for the first time in years, was isolated, left alone with his thoughts. He called Father M one evening, asking him to break quarantine for a visit. The priest hesitated but agreed, hoping this might be the moment Combs would finally face his guilt, that the silence might have broken through his defenses. Instead, he found the opposite. He was sitting in a dimly lit room, no music, just stillness, Father M recalled. Candles were everywhere. I thought it was a moment of reflection, but it was a celebration. Combs had just secured a major business deal and wanted to mark the occasion with what he called spiritual closure. He poured 2 drinks, offering one to the priest, who declined. Raising his glass, Combs toasted, "To sins paid in full." Father M's voice broke on the stand. "I pleaded with him that night," he said. "I told him there was still time, that forgiveness isn't a transaction or a publicity stunt. But he looked me in the eyes, unmoved, and said, 'You weren't here to save me. You were here to bless me. That's all.'" That was their final conversation. He didn't want salvation, Father M said, his voice trembling. He wanted immunity. The courtroom was heavy with emotion. Some jurors stared at the floor, others sat in stunned silence. A reporter whispered, "This isn't just a trial, it's an exorcism." As the judge declared a recess, Father M turned to the jury with his parting words. He didn't seek confession to find salvation, he sought to shape the story. Now it's up to you to decide what that story means. Just when the courtroom thought it had absorbed the full weight of the testimony, a new bombshell emerged. Not from Father M or the prosecution, but from outside the trial. While the proceedings were ongoing, an anonymous source leaked the sealed contents of the envelope Combs had given the priest years earlier. The documents surfaced on an encrypted online forum frequented by investigative journalists, and within hours they had spread like wildfire across the internet. The contents were more disturbing than anyone had anticipated. Beyond the cover letter, the envelope contained meticulously detailed plans for managing a crisis. There were sections labeled Pre-Crisis Media Plan, Church Allies for Image Restoration, and most chillingly, Leverage. The leverage section listed names of public figures, pastors, producers, politicians, each paired with cryptic phrases like, "He used the private jet, remind him," photos from 2007 Bahamas trip, and donation routed through Daughter's Foundation. There were also enigmatic code phrases, spaghetti night, West Wing after 3 a.m., Havana files not for print, with no clear explanations, leaving readers to speculate about their meaning. Journalists raced to authenticate the documents. Handwriting experts confirmed the script matched Combs' known writing, and a forensic linguist consulted by a major news outlet concluded this was crafted by someone with an expert grasp of high-stakes reputation management. But what unsettled the public most was a brief, almost overlooked note at the bottom of the final page. "If this surfaces, I've already built my ark. Let the deluge come. I've chosen who stays afloat." Online speculation exploded. Was the ark a secret retreat, a trove of compromising material, or a metaphor? No one knew for certain, but the implication was unmistakable. Combs had not only foreseen exposure, but believed he could weather it. In court, the prosecution swiftly moved to enter the leaked documents into evidence. Combs' legal team fought to suppress them, arguing an unreliable chain of custody, but the damage was irreversible. News channels aired excerpts non-stop, and social media erupted with hashtags like Diddy Ark and Let the Flood Come. The jury sat ashen-faced, grappling with the realization that this wasn't just a man claiming innocence, it was a man who had orchestrated a plan to outlast guilt. During a redirect, Father M was shown the full document for the first time. He closed his eyes and spoke softly. He never came to confess. He came to rehearse. In that moment, the trial's true nature crystallized. This wasn't solely about proving Combs' guilt, it was about whether anyone could hold him accountable.